Marksman Podcast.
Well, John, that's very interesting path that you took with the tail gun position of the B-52 bomber. So you rumor control out of Barksdale, the tail gunners are going away. Several months later, that's proven to be the case. And the Air Force, and its generosity in recognizing the historical value that the tail gunners brought, kind of gave you guys a priority in choosing your assignment. Many as an aircrew on many platforms. So, what did you want? What did you want to do, John?
What I wanted to do was fly on the 141.
Oh, that's the airframe that you wanted.
Yes.
And
so it was actually a blessing. Put in for orders on 141s and ended up getting orders to McCord Air Force Base, which is 20 miles down the road from Puyallup, Washington, where I started out in the Air Force. So I was basically going home. And it was.
Were you married at this time?
Nope, single guy.
Okay.
Which is probably a good thing. Because that time, we spent a lot of time on the road. We were, and it's not like that now either, but we were specific crew. So there was pilots, co-pilots, of course, load masters and engineers, and we basically pooled aircrew. And whenever they needed you to fly, your job was to be the best flight engineer, best load master, best pilot available, and they'd call you up and you'd go fly.
Did they use navigators still at that time?
They did have navigators, but basically they were phasing them out. We only used them on airdrop missions.
Okay. And where did you go to train to be a flight engineer on C-141s?
All of that was done at Altus. All the C-5 and all the 141 training was done.
That's Oklahoma.
Yep, Altus, Oklahoma. Again, that's 26 years since I've done that.
Wow.
So trying to pull in the memories again. And I did that from 92 to 99. As a student, you would go to Altus. So you went through BFE, and BFE was basic flight engineer, where they would teach you performance. Performance was all the logistics of flying, how the airplane flies, how everything works. And then we would put the performance together so that we were the performance expert on the airplane, figuring out all the capabilities, and then backing the pilots up with that.
Based on the loadout of the aircraft? I mean,
everything, yeah, the load, the temperature, we would take all that information and then figure out what the numbers were for that day's flying. So we would go to basic flight engineer, we'd come back to the squadron. I think they would fly you a couple times or something. Then you go back to TTU, which was technical training unit, where you would learn all the 141 or C5 specific stuff. Then you come back to the squadron again, and you would fly, and then you get a qualification. You'd be a student and then get a qualification as a second flight engineer, which gave you a couple, second flight engineer gave you a couple of more privileges. I think you can fly with an instructor. Again, don't quote me on some of these things. It's been a while since I've been around it. That, and then you get qualified as a first engineer. That normally took from the time you started training to the time you were qualified as a first engineer, probably took close to a year. Wow. Just because of the stuff that you had to do. And then they'd put you on a crew and you'd go out and dance around the world.
Were you good with math?
I didn't realize I hated math when I was in high school, but I didn't realize until I went to the performance school how much I really loved math and how good I was at math and how easy it was for me. Yeah. I can tell you there was one incident when we were students, and you probably heard this, the C-141s that crashed while they were air refueling over Montana.
Yes.
Those, I'd flown with a couple of those guys. I was a brand new student. And there was probably a dozen students. We'd flown with some of those guys. So I was watching the TV the night before, and they said, yeah, 2 airplanes crashed over Montana. And I'm like, wow, I didn't realize that. I went in the next day. All of us students are sitting around a table, and the boss man comes in. And he said, you guys have probably heard that there was 2 planes that crashed last night. We said, yeah. He goes, I'm going to pass around this set of orders, or 2 sets of orders, so you guys will understand who was on the airplanes. Some of the guys I'd flown with, some of the other students flown with some of the guys. So he passed around this set of orders. And what was really eerie, and I guess what hit home to me, was one of the friends that I was a gunner with at Fairchild was a 141 engineer student with me at that time. They passed this set of orders around, and his name was at the bottom of that list with all the other dead guys, but it had been blocked out, but you could still read his name through it. So what had happened was he was supposed to fly on one of those planes the day before, and his son panicked or freaked out. So he called up and he goes, my son's having a fit. There's no way that I can come in and fly today. That saved his life. And it, I guess it hit home to me, to the realization, what we're doing is really real. And it was just kind of weird in that aspect.
Well, the C-141, and maybe you expand on this, is it wasn't just a cargo hauler from point A to point B and then go back to point A and shut it down and lock it up. Is that incident, they were actually at flying a different type of profile where they collided. But if I was under the understanding that they were actually at low level and the refueling was taking place and they merged into each other, setting up for the tankers.
I don't think they were low level, Dutch, but they were doing, so they would do, again, I'm trying to remember the specifics. Yeah. We would do formation refueling, where one guy would come in and then he would back out and then the next guy would come in and then they would stair step out. And what it was is something was done incorrectly and they missed their timing and hit each other.
And it was a nighttime flight.
Was it nighttime?
Yeah. That's just a whole attitude.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
When you're younger, I was full of piss and vinegar, and I thought I was invincible, and nothing bothered me. Hey, do this, do that. Let's try this, let's try that. And then as I started getting older, and this is one of the incidents here that probably finally hit home, was I started realizing my own mortality, and then I didn't probably start taking as many risks as I used to, and started being a little bit more careful. But the 141, like you said, we did a wide variation of missions, and I think I said earlier it was my favorite airplane because of when you showed up, you never knew exactly what you were going to do. We flew all over the world with varied missions. Some of the things we did was strategic airlift. We did that worldwide. I've been to Africa. I've probably been to every continent except Antarctica, and we actually did ice drops or land at Antarctica and do resupplies down there. I just never did that because it was during elk hunting season, and my boss always wanted me to go, but I said, no, I got to go elk.
Oh, there you are.
So, but we did strategic airlift. They did embassy support, State Department. We did presidential support. Absolutely wonderful. That was probably one of the best missions you could get. We would carry the limos around. Whenever the president went somewhere, he had to pre-position. They pre-positioned. We would carry the Secret Service guys in the limos, or we would carry comm gear. Those were great missions because you got treated very well. And we did Thunderbird support. That's another one.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Treated well. You were actually part of the Thunderbird team, and I can't remember what our call sign was because there was Thunderbird 1, 2, 3. I can't remember what it was. I think we were like Thunderbird 11. Again, don't quote me on this. It's been a while.
Uh-huh.
So we would fly with the Thunderbirds, and they were treated very well. We got the residuals from that. They would do missile support, moving missiles around. I always said we carried beans and bullets for the Army and the Marine Corps. So we would do supply runs for the Marines and Army guys and take things to them depending on outposts or whatever.
Yeah.
We did airdrop, which was probably one of my favorite missions. We would drop personnel. I respect the Army guys for this. They'd pack in full rucks. I remember one specifically, we picked up a full Army group from Korea, somewhere in Korea. I don't remember exactly where. Packed them in the airplane, and I mean, they were packed tight. They got full rucks, and they got their parachutes, and they got their M16s, and they got everything that they need to bivouac out in the field.
Uh-huh.
Packed in the airplane, had to be, seems like there was over 100 of those guys in there. We flew all the way from Korea to somewhere down south, like Georgia or one of these places.
Wow.
It seemed like it was a 15, 16-hour flight, maybe longer than that. Once we get down there, these guys had to stand up, and the jump master opens the doors. These guys jump out of the airplane, and then they had to go play war games. Crazy. I respect them for that. We did personnel. We did heavy equipment. So we would drop heavy equipment stuff. One of them I remember specifically is we had a 38,000-pound road grader in the back of the 141.
What is a road grader? A grader?
Just like a road grader that goes down.
Yes.
Road grader, yeah.
Oh, okay.
This thing barely fit in there. There was not much clearance on top and barely on the sides. And I remember when that thing left, it created a vacuum and sucked half the dust and dirt from inside the airplane. We lost 38,000 pounds instantaneously.
Oh.
So the plane jumps up in the air. Yeah, it was pretty exciting.
Wow.
We did Halo. Halo's high altitude, low opening.
Uh-huh.
I don't recall. I did very few of those. We would do that for the special force guys so that they could practice.
Uh-huh.
So we would actually depressurize the airplane, go on oxygen, high altitude. And then these guys would drop. It was high altitude, low opening. So they would drop, but then they wouldn't open their chute till they were low. It was basically infill for them, infiltration. Yeah. We did CDS, which was containerized delivery. I'm not exactly sure how much of that I did, but it was just like delivering MREs or supplies to refuel ground units.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite ones is we would go to the jump school. Is that Fort Benning, I believe?
Benning or Bragg? I
want
to say Benning.
I can't remember. But these were some of my favorites because you would show up and these guys had just finished the ground portion of jump school. So they're full of piss and vinegar and they're all excited. Hey, we're going to go jump. And they're excited. You put them in and they're all pumped up and ready to go. And we normally jump them a couple times that day. So the first jump, they're pumped up, ready to go. We'd kick them out of the back of the airplane. We come back around land. They'd pick them up in a bus, bring them back, and they were going to jump again. They weren't so excited the second time around. They got the full meal deal there. Another one I can remember at Pope Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
So at one time we would go in with, oh gosh, I can't remember. We would do a package with the Army. The Army would have huge exercises, field exercises, and we would go in for a week. I don't remember how many airplanes we would bring in. And we would do a couple of drops a night and just pepper the field with these guys. So one of the things was to make sure that we had our stuff together was they would send normally a flight examiner or an instructor, and we would go out to help the guys make sure the mission got accomplished. So at one time, my commander sent me and another guy down there, and there was a combat control guy that asked it. He goes, hey guys, if you're not doing anything, you want to go out on the field of the drop zone and actually see what goes on. So he took us out there. We got to see the heavy equipment drop. And then he goes, come on, we can go out here now. And we go out on the field as they come by and dropped all these Army guys. There's Army guys raining down around us. And this combat control guy, he's laughing at them. and making fun of someone. One of the guys knocking into Humvees and certain other things. But we just got to see the way the Army did it and how they pulled their stuff together. Another thing I remember on that same mission was he goes, hang on, we're going to get a dust off, which I've never heard of either. A dust off. Helicopter comes in because a guy broke his back or something, come in, picked him up, and the exercise continued. And I remember we would come into a debrief after that. It would be 1-star or 2-star general from the Army would come in there and praise how well the Air Force did, how well the Army did. Hey, we only had 3 guys get hurt, and sometimes 1 guy died or something like that. But it was a very successful. I'll tell you another story here, real quick.
Go for it.
Because I got this other one here.
Your platform.
So on the 141, we're flying across the Atlantic Ocean. We're going to actually Rota Air Force Base. I don't even remember what we were doing.
That's Spain.
And, we're flying along, and all of a sudden, the autopilot kicks off. So I don't remember what the pilot was doing, if he was up going to the bathroom break or whatever. Co-pilot clicks it back on. All of a sudden, the autopilot kicks off again. And then it got to the point where it's going really squirrely, and it got to the point where it was actually, we were side slipping through the airstream where the air was coming across the co-pilot's window, and you could actually hear it and feel it.
That's not good.
No, it was not good at all. So the pilot, he goes, let me see if I can handle it. And he was trying to get it under control. Finally, the co-pilot was smart enough. He reached up and he had 2 switches. He depowered the rudder, boom, and the thing straightened out. We go in, we land. Come to find out, they said that they had just replaced the rudder pack. And when they replaced the rudder pack, because it's an intricate instrument, there's shipping pins that go inside of it. When the maintenance guys took the rudder pack out, they installed it, but they left the shipping pins in. So that's why we were having the problem with the rudder, because it wasn't working the way it was supposed to. Could have got real ugly, I think, if the co-pilot had started up and depowered it. The next day, same airplane, we had to get diplomatic clearances to fly over, must have been France or something, I can't remember.
Wouldn't shock me if it was.
Yeah. So we're going down, and we could feel something felt weird, like it was chugging, like the airplane was chugging. We didn't know what it was. We cruise up, we line up on the runway, didn't feel nothing, everything felt fine. Lines up on the runway, the pilot pushes the power up, and as we're going down the runway, we get past the V1 or the go speed, and so then it's hush hush, we're committed anyway, and then you could feel the same surge. The plane was surging as it just felt really weird, but nobody said anything. Let's continue the takeoff. We'll take it in the air, and then we'll deal with the situation. It's easier than trying to stop and run it off the end of the runway.
Yeah.
So we take off. As soon as we take off, everybody says, hey, did you feel that? Yeah, we felt that. As soon as somebody said that, because we're at a Navy base, the tower comes on. He goes, reach, whatever our call sign was. He goes, ground has reported that you got sparks coming from your starboard engines. Number one, we had to figure out, where's our starboard engines? Because you guys are Navy and we're not. And they said, yeah, it's on the right side. So we go downstairs, and they said, sparks from the starboard engine. So I told the loadmaster at that time, hey, check your side. I'm going to check my side. So I go and I look out the window. Number 3 and number 4 engine look perfectly fine. He looks at his, everything's fine. I said, So I got to thinking about it for a second. I said, what else could it be? I said, oh, yeah, we got the brakes on this side. Let's check the brakes. I said, open your window, check the brakes. So we'd already brought the gear up, and it's set in a wheel well with 2 75-liter lux converters. I pulled the window off and looked out, and I said, holy shit. The brakes were glowing like a neon light. So I got on the radio, and I go, guys, these brakes are, I said, they're glowing. And the flight engineer at that time, he's like, glowing, what do you mean? I go, well, you know how your oven, what's that called?
Wood stove?
No, so your cooking oven, when you turn on
the burners,
underneath the oven, the thing that gets
the broil,
the broiler. Thank you. I said it's glowing like a broiler, and then it got everybody's attention. And they go, holy shit! So what had happened was, anyway, we went through, we ran the emergency checklists or whatever. We decided to come back around. We decided to land the airplane. As soon as we landed the airplane, all 4 tires blew because the brakes were fused. We ran it down the runway. We exited the airplane. We only had 3 passengers that time, but we ran them off. As we ran away, I remember looking over my right shoulder, and I seen the airplane sitting like this.
Oh, you blew
and I go, oh, that's going to be a piss test. So what we found, what we found out happened was, again, must have been the same maintenance guys. So we have the anti-skid control valves. So like brake 7, they had crisscrossed the two lines. So brake 7 was going to 8, 8 was going to 7. So one of them was actually locking up. That was the surging that we were feeling as we're going down the runway, but it was releasing the other brake. So it got super hot. It fused all the brakes. And when we landed, they were already locked up. Yeah. And it ground those tires and trucked it down to the axle. So anyway, there's actually a right up here. And this is from Stars and Stripes. So we had 3 passengers. And this guy that you can see right here, here's what he says.
What's he say?
He says, I was a tank commander for 9 years in the Army. I never really thought about what could go wrong. But what really rattled my cage on this plane is when we're coming in for final approach. I looked up at one of the flight crew and saw him make the sign of the cross and pray.
Was that you?
That wasn't me. That was a loadmaster.
Oh, okay.
That was a loadmaster. So
that's a funny story.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. So you stayed
there. Yeah. But as a passenger, to see one of the crew members praying, yeah.
That'd be a little disturbing.
Yeah.
So did you go to Travis on 141s or did you stay up at McCord?
No, I stayed at McCord, and then when it came time for the 141s to start phasing out, people started, we actually sat all together. There were 3 squadrons, the 4th Squadron, the 8th Squadron, and the 7th Squadron, I guess it was at that time. The commanders got together. We had a big meeting or whatever, and they decided who was going to go first and what would be the last squadron to stay as they started phasing out the 141s. I always thought I wanted to be the last guy on the last 141. It actually didn't work out that way, and I think it was probably a blessing anyway. Yeah. So we were the first ones, and we kind of felt like we were getting gypped. But actually, I don't think we did get gypped. We actually probably got some of the better assignments.
Okay.
So my boss at that time came down, and she goes, hey, I got 6 slots here, 7 slots for KC-10's to Travis Air Force Base. And I'm offering you one, and she offered him to a couple other people. So I thought about it, because the KC-10 used to be a premier airplane. You had to be an instructor and examiner, have 2,000 hours and all this other stuff.
They also referred to it as the Gucci bird.
Gucci bird. It was too. It was a Gucci bird.
Yeah. And explain to the audience what made it a Gucci bird.
Well, most of the airplanes in the aircraft inventory are military airplanes. They're built specifically for one specific role. The KC-10 was an off-the-shelf DC-10, which they converted into a super tanker. So it had all the bells and whistles and comforts of a commercial airliner. Something most of the other planes didn't have. So that's why they call it Gucci.
And the original paint scheme, and is one of the photographs you sent me, was the white on gray with the blue band. Yeah, it was looked like an Air Force One paint scheme almost.
Yeah.
And your patch was a Gucci bird. Did you fly on the Gucci bird paint scheme ones, or were they the gray?
No, those were gone before my time. I think the Air Force used to pretty everything up, and then they, again, to start, I think it came from a cost savings to save money.
Yeah.
Started changing the paint schemes. One of them was they went to a camouflage.
That Shamu paint scheme? Yeah. I never liked that one.
And then they went to a straight gray. That's pretty much what they are now.
Yeah.
And I think it was cost savings.
I can see that. What'd you think of the KC-10?
Absolutely loved it. So on the 141, it was a working man's airplane. We'd probably go through a pair of gloves every 2 weeks because you're touching and feeling stuff and putting oil and fuel and climbing around the thing and doing maintenance or whatever. I think I still have the original pair of gloves that I had from was issued on the KC-10 because it was a gentleman's airplane. Everything worked. When we got there, they were pristine. You would open up the forms. There were no write-ups. And when you'd land in, there would be like one thing. You'd tell the crew chief, hey, can you change that light bulb? It was just wonderful. You showed up, everything worked. It was pristine. It was a beautiful airplane. Everything worked. We had a great mission. But at that time, they would have a dedicated crew chief, and then he would have 2 or 3 assistant crew chiefs who would help him take care of the airplane. It was their airplane. They owned it, and they would let you know, this is my airplane. You're renting it for the time that you go out and do your little mission.
That is true.
I remember this specifically. We had to go check the center accessory compartment prior to applying power. So you have to walk down the cargo compartment, but there's a gangplank you're supposed to walk down. I go walking down the middle of the cargo compartment. I come bebopping up like a dumbass crew member, and this crew chief come down and started chewing. What are you, air crew member? You don't appreciate our plane. We just painted that floor, and he pretty much told me, that, hey, I'm messing up his game. They took pride in the airplane. They took pride in the way the airplane looked. They took pride in everything that they did. Here's what happened a year or 2 into my tour on the KC-10. I think the bombers were having problems or whatever. So they decimated our crew chiefs and took a bunch of our dedicated, experienced crew chiefs and put them in the bomber force. And it seems like things kind of went down after that, as far as maintenance and upkeep. On the KC-10, there's 2 bases, McGuire and Travis. And then the way we would do training there was each base had a formal training unit. So you didn't have a formal school. Each base kind of took care of it. We would take crew members from within the squadrons, and they would front or form or be instructors in the formal training unit. We would go to the sim, do our ground training, learn our sim stuff, and then you go to the formal training unit and fly there. And then you go back to the squadron, and once you got back to the squadron, you would have to learn the mission and the basic things on the KC-10. The big things were cargo, because you had to be able to balance the fuel and work that concept. And then the other thing is fighter drags. The KC-10 worked really, really, really well delivering fighters around the world. And one of the things that we would do there, because you could put pallets in the back with all their maintenance, 75 crew members, and then you take off and you'd form with their 6 fighters, 3 on each wing, and you could take them wherever you wanted worldwide, and it worked very, very well. One advantage
the KC-10 had is that you could also do probe and drogue refueling.
Same time.
You didn't and then on the wings, COBAM pods, or I forget what they're called.
Wing air refueling pods. So they put those.
Yeah, that's
so you could refuel. They worked great for us when I was flying, but the last couple of years, nobody even used them. They didn't like them because I guess they had maintenance issues and some other things.
Got long in the tooth. And just for the audience to know that the KC-10s were retired last October.
The last one was September 2024.
Yeah, I managed to go to Travis and get a photograph of the last KC-10 that was there before it went off and did a little tour before it arrived at the boneyard. So how many hours? Because you log your hours on these aircraft, right?
Yeah, probably. I think I had to look at my hours. I thought I had more than I actually realized I had. 500 or 600 hours in the B-52. Those are long hours. And then I got 2,000 or somewhere around 2,500 in the 141, and somewhere around 2,500 in the KC-10. A lot of my time I was an instructor. I became an instructor, so I would do a lot of things in the instructor career field. I absolutely love being an instructor because you got to take young guys out that didn't know anything, and you got to nurture them. And when I was coming up through the flying world, it was a privilege to fly, and they kind of treated it as a privilege to fly, and they kind of expected you to understand it was a privilege. And they'd wrap you on the head with a checklist. They'd kick your seat and things like that. I said, when I become an instructor, I'm not going to be that guy.
Okay.
I just enjoy taking the guys out and teaching them something.
And that was effective teaching all this. You didn't have to
definitely. I spent a lot of time. Yeah.
And then you retired from the Air Force, but you didn't quite leave the KC-10 world, or what?
Correct.
And do you have any other KC-10 stories that you want to share?
I was thinking about this. The only thing I can think of is we did our deployments. So McGuire was on the East Coast, we were on the West Coast. during one of those conflicts, I don't remember which one it was, they would go to the desert, sleeping in tents, eating MREs or whatever, and that's how they deployed. We actually got to go to Diego Garcia. I don't know if you know where that's at.
I do.
Very small island, strategic naval position.
Yeah, in the Indian Ocean there.
Oh, it was absolutely beautiful, because there were 3 bars or clubs or whatever you could drink. There were 2 guys to a room. We'd go fishing. It was incredible.
Oh, and you're a fisherman too, right? You like to fish. Yeah, we talked.
I would get my deployment orders, and I would be singing and whistling as I'm packing them. My wife was, why are you so happy? I said, honey, this is something I got to do for our country. Because we're going to Diego and I get to fish and drink beer. So it was awesome.
I wondered, I've never spoken with anybody that's been to Diego Garcia. And it's just
Absolutely.
a little island out in the Indian Ocean, a very important island.
Very much so. Very strategic.
Yes. It carries a lot of the heavies. And the Americans weren't the only ones that used the base. I know there was a time where the British were using that as well.
The Brits own it.
Oh, is that who owns it?
Yeah, the Brits own it.
That explains the beer.
What's that?
That explains the beer.
Oh, yeah. They own it, and they run certain things. So they own the island, and they got a security force there. They basically, but the United States pays them good money to have the ability to use it. It's a nice place, and it beats sitting in the desert in a tent in the heat.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was the fishing good?
The fishing was incredible. So we would pay $25 per person, and you had a captain, a Filipino captain, who was trained to do this, and he would take you out there, and we'd go deep sea fishing. It was incredible. Tuna, yellowfin tuna.
Oh, wow.
Or we'd go on the beach, and we're catching giant trevallies. I mean, it was just incredible. And then we'd have fish fries and drink beer. It was incredible. For a deployment, you couldn't beat it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how long would the deployment last typically?
What's that now?
How long would the deployment last typically?
Normally, we would go 60 days.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, 60 days. It wasn't too bad. 60 days or 30 days? 60 days, I think it was. 60 days, yeah, it wasn't too bad. Again, if you're Diego, if you're stuck in the desert, ugh.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand being in the desert. I did not like it. Yeah.
So now we're at the twilight of your career in the Air Force.
Done. So here's what happened was a bunch of guys got promoted to E8. I was one of them.
Good for you.
Across the board, I can't remember. The flight engineer career field is very small. 5 of us on our base as engineers got promoted to E8. So there's 24 master sergeants at McGuire Air Force Base. None of those guys got promoted. So the guy that's running, go ahead.
I find that odd.
Yes, it is, because there are certain things you had to have your records together, and certain things in your records stood out, which give you a promotion score. And then you had to test, and you had to be very good at testing. Some guys never put forth the effort to get their record in order, or put forth the effort to study to do well on the test.
So this is more of a culture difference.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
We're good at policing our guys and getting our records together so that we look presentable. And then guys would just study well, and we'd put it together. Yeah. So the guy who was running operations at that time, he goes, hey, man, I have to take a couple of you guys and send you to McGuire just to balance the force. So could you imagine being one of the E8s from Travis, going to them and going, hey, I'm here to save you guys.
Yeah, a little hostile.
The 24 master sergeants that didn't get promoted. Yeah. So my wife and I had actually purchased a bar downtown that she worked at.
Downtown
Winters, California.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So she was running that. And then I was like, I didn't know what to do. I was being torn between 2 different things. So I said, I don't know what I'm going to do here. And she goes, we'll do whatever you want to do. I said, what about the bar? She goes, we can find somebody to run the bar. We'll go to McGuire. I talked to people that had been stationed at McGuire. I'm not an East Coast guy. So one of the guys told me one time, he goes, John, when it's time to retire, you're going to know it's time to retire. So I'm sitting in the garage having a couple of cold beers, and I just got this notion. And I said, that's it. I'm done. My wife goes, are you sure? And I said, yes. That's the best night's sleep that I think I ever had in 20-some years.
Really?
Yes. I went in the next day and told my boss. Yeah, told my boss. I said, I'm retiring. And then I had no regrets.
from the time you announce your retirement to the time that you do retire, what kind of time frame was that?
Between say
From the
that one
time
more
you told your boss that I'm going to go ahead and submit for retirement to the day was your last day in a flight suit because you retired. What kind of time frame is that?
you would actually you could pick your own retirement from, I think it was 30 days to out to 1 year. I picked a couple of months, so it wasn't very long, just enough to give me time so I could skedaddle. It wasn't a big deal. I didn't want to drag my feet.
Okay, and you referenced your wife,
Yes.
uh, and where did you meet her at? Because we talked that you were single at one time, and now you're not single. Where'd
Speaking of that
happen?
same bar that she was running at that time, that's exactly where I met her.
Okay, and nobody, I listeners to the channel are from all over the place. Explain the town of Winters so we can get a
So Winters
visual.
is a small agricultural town,
Mm-hmm.
um, outside of Vacaville, California, probably, I don't know, 20 or 25 miles, probably north of Travis Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
Small little enclave, and that's why I moved there, because I just like the small town atmosphere.
Yeah,
I walked
it
her
is.
into the bar. This lady's working at the bar, and that's where her and I met. And then she ended up buying the bar, and she's running the bar.
Nice, and
Owned the bar, yeah. It was
yeah,
wonderful.
well, that's a nice story, and so you guys, you guys, you retired, and eventually you migrated out of Winters, and
Everybody makes you think that they're waiting for you outside with open arms, and they're gonna snatch you up because you come from the military. It's not true. And I found that out. It's not true.
but you did get a civilian
I
job.
did. So
Hit on
the guys
that.
in the sim was such a pristine job. It was a great job. Guys loved it, and it paid very well for what we did at that time. And you still got to work around the air crew members and have that interaction. Those
Uh-huh.
guys would never leave. There were guys there. I remember one guy who was a pilot, 80 years old. Guys would never leave those positions. So I used to tell the guys, if you want to get a job at the sim, what you need to do is take some poison donuts over there. They'll eat those. Somebody will die and free up a position. I said, here's the problem. The problem is you're going to kill all the pilots first, because pilots have a reputation of taking all the free stuff. So they would eat all the donuts first. Anyway, it was a joke. It wasn't meant to be disrespectful in any way.
So no connection to the 4 pilots that died of rat poisoning and donuts.
That's right. So there was a courseware job. So in the det, which was flight safety at that time, there was a courseware job that opened up, doing the courseware. I applied for the job because I figured if I'm in the company when one of these other jobs opens up in the sim, then I'm the next direct guy, because I'd be direct hire from the company. That was one of the worst jobs I ever had in my life, because it was an office job.
Oh no, you're not an office guy.
I tell guys, I equate it like this. I said it was like a slow, painful death. So there were the ladies in World War II that would paint the numbers on the aircrew watches with the luminescent paint that was nuclear activated, and they would tell them, hey, make sure you get a fine point, so lick the brush, and then they'd stick it in the nuclear paint, and they would do that. And after, what was it, I can't remember what they call those girls, anyway, 2 years their teeth are falling out, their hair's falling out, and they all got cancer. And I said, that job was the same way. It was like a slow, painful death. It was just horrible.
Oh,
but
man.
because it was an office job, and it's just one of those things. It just didn't fit well. But it did open the door for me. And then they expanded the simulator jobs. So we opened those up. I was a shoe-in, like I thought I would, if I just endured this, which I did for 2 years. So then I got to go to the sim and be an instructor. I was elated. I was in heaven. I loved instructing. I loved imparting the knowledge, taking a kid off the street that didn't know anything. And 3 months later, he's operating emergency checklists with his hair on fire and the plane on fire, cohesively and collectively with the crew, landing the plane safely. And it was wonderful. And it was just a great job. And I did that. How long did I do the sim? I wrote this somewhere too. The simulator was. So I started that about 2010, and I took it all the way to retirement in 2024.
Good job.
Lots of students throughout the KC-10 career field. You know,
Did you get to play with the sim sometimes and fly the
all
KC-10?
the time.
all the time.
Yes. So
Wish I'd
everybody
known you
know.
back then. I could have
I know, right?
got
I
some
was
stick
definitely
to it.
taking you. Everybody
Yeah.
you know finds out you're in the sim, want to bring their family in and show them the sim. So
Were you able to do that?
Oh yeah, most definitely. If
Okay.
it was a free period, we could bring family friends in and uh, show them how the sim operated, and we do that. We took pride in that because it was they were awestruck because it was a full motion.
Oh,
Some people would
yeah.
get airsick, and it was a full blown cockpit. So it was just it was awe inspiring to these people. And they're civilians, so they get to see where the money goes in the Air Force and see what we're doing and how
I
we're
can
training
see
their
that.
crews.
Yeah.
So I would embrace it. I would bring them all in and try to fit them in and show them what we did. And it was wonderful and it was exciting and we'd laugh and we'd have a good time.
And then you retired.
Then I retired.
And you and Miss Guetter.
Yep. And we're in Idaho now. So I retired June 30th. So they phased us out too. And the last guy stayed the last quarter of 2024. So I was fiscal year 2024. So I was I don't know, second or third or fourth to the last guy to go. My job ended there on the 30th. We were on the road the 30th and came to Idaho, and we'd been planning this for a while. So that's where we settled down.
Wow. You know what? That's a well-rounded career with some very cool airframes and a very cool story.
I've had a great career. The good Lord has blessed me and blessed me well, and I've had a lot of fun.
You still got your youth.
Yes.
Are you able to get some hunting in up there?
I haven't done any hunting. We bought an ATV. We do some shooting, and I love to fish. And there's places, but the Snake River is only a couple miles down the road.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And so you're fishing still, though, right? You
most definitely.
Oh, good for you, John.
Yeah.
Well, John, we're approaching that magic moment.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for a wonderful interview and sharing those stories. And thank you for, it's a cliche for your service, but thanks for doing that because it kind of kept the bad guys at bay. It kept people fed. And did you ever fly any humanitarian type missions?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, I can share something else. So
yeah,
humanitarian,
sure.
I'm trying to remember that we would do airdrops for like the Kurds and things like that. Or did we ever pick anybody up? They would do like evacuating the Philippines. Yeah, I can't remember what else. Yeah. But most definitely, we do everything.
That's a good feel-good mission too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look into the C-141. You know what? Of all the models I built, I've never built that one. Now these kind of things are what motivates me to go in the air show, the museum, or whatever. I'm gonna have to go get me a 141 kit. I love the white on gray paint scheme. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, you can find that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If not, I'll make it. But John, I want to say again, thank you very much for being a guest on the Flying Dutchman. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We're almost related. We're almost related, right?
Yeah, in an indirect way, we are.
Yeah.
And I really like the I love you all behind there. And the next time my wife and I, when we're cruising up that way on our way to Montana, we're going to swing by and say hello.
Come on.
All right, cool.
More than welcome anytime. There's a great steakhouse down the road. We'll take you for dinner.
All right. We'll get us a nice IPA beer. And
there you go. Sounds good.
I appreciate it. Hey,
right,
you were representing with that shirt too. I saw that.
That's right.
You got the Flying Dutchman. Yeah, I'll be handing a few of those out at the air show at Mather. Well, John, smoke them if you got them.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast. Thanks for bringing back the memories.
Yeah, you're gonna dwell on those even more. You're gonna go, I should have told that story.
It's okay. It's all good.
You'll hit me up next year when I'm up that way.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Bye.
All right, Dutch. Thanks.
Godspeed, fill me. I will find that sunshine, some beauty on the rise. Yeah. Sunlight, good night. image of me